governor of New York in 1982. Cuomo recounted his humble roots in his first inaugural address as governor in 1983.
Like millions of others, my mother and father came here with very little more than a willingness to spend all their effort in honest toil. They asked only for the opportunity to work and for some protection in those moments when they would not be able to protect themselves, thanks to a government that was wise enough to help them without stifling them, and strong enough to provide them with opportunities to earn their own bread. They survived.
The very next year, Cuomo gained national attention when he gave the keynote address at the Democratic Convention in San Francisco in what became known as the Tale of Two Cities speech. It was a liberal rebuttal to then-President Ronald Reagan's vision of America as a shining city on a hill.
Mr. President, you ought to know that this nation is more a tale of two cities than it is just a shining city on a hill. Maybe, Mr. President, if you visited some more places, maybe if you went to Appalachia where some people still live in sheds, maybe if you went to Lackawanna where thousands of unemployed steel workers wonder why we subsidize foreign steel.
After that, Cuomo was considered a contender for president. The closest he came was in December of 1991, when a plane stood on the tarmac at the Albany airport in order to get the governor to New Hampshire in time to register for the presidential primary there. Cuomo never boarded, saying he had to deal with the state budget crisis instead.
But I would be less than honest if I did not admit to you my regret at not having the chance to run for president.
Mario Cuomo lost his fourth bid for governor in part because, in an era of high incidence of violent crime, he clung to his belief that the death penalty was wrong. Ironically, under Cuomo, the state's prison population grew to its largest size ever. He also had to close giant budget deficits and at times cut taxes and spending, though overall state spending grew during his 12 years in office. Mario Cuomo also saw indoor smoking bans enacted and the first law against hate crimes. Almost 20 years to the day after Mario Cuomo lost his final political race, his son Andrew Cuomo was re-elected governor of New York, and Mario Cuomo was honored by the crowd in what was to be his last public appearance.
A man who is all about principle and inspiration, and has taught many of the people in this room what being a Democrat is really all about. I want you to give a big, big New York welcome to Governor Mario Matthew Cuomo.
The applause went on and on. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt.
Governor Andrew Cuomo honored his father again in his inaugural speeches yesterday, given just hours before his father died. Mario Cuomo was able to attend his son's re-election party back in November, but died just hours after the governor delivered his inaugural address at One World Trade Center yesterday. That address included passionate tributes to his ailing father.
We, as my father said so well, we are the family of New York, he called it. A collection of the most daring, bold, accepting people from every country on the globe.
Throughout the speech, the governor presented an agenda for his second term that centered on themes of inequality and injustice. WNYC's Karen Rouse reports.
The governor chose to deliver his first of two inaugural addresses against the backdrop of the World Trade Center site, what he called a symbol of the city's resiliency. He described the New York of old, a place where education was a gateway to success, economic opportunity was available to all, and the blindfold worn by Lady Justice was firmly in place. Then, Cuomo said it was time to get real, about poverty, failing schools, and a justice system that has left many minorities feeling disenchanted.
Too many people are questioning if the blindfold is still intact.
He also confronted head-on the racial and political divisions New Yorkers have witnessed in recent weeks.
The truth is, the justice system does need review. The truth is there are troubling questions that have been raised that must be answered. The truth is police officers do need more safety and need more protection. The truth is law enforcement needs to respect the community as much as the community needs to respect law enforcement.
Governors typically hold inaugural speeches in Albany. Cuomo chose New York City, which has become the center of a national outcry about Black America and law enforcement. Last month, a Staten Island grand jury decided not to indict a white NYPD police officer in the chokehold death of a Black man named Eric Garner. Then 2 NYPD police officers were killed by a man seeking revenge for Garner's death. But whether legislators in Albany share Cuomo's ambition for shaking up the legal system is an open question. New York State Assemblyman Kareem Kamara of Brooklyn called Cuomo's speech bold, but he didn't expect all members of the legislature to share his convictions.
We have the dynamic of a Republican-led Senate, and I have respect for the leader of the Senate, but we also know that there are differences of opinion in this conference and other individuals throughout the state. Not everyone sees the dynamics that leaders of color see in their communities.
Other lawmakers are concerned about rushing legislation through too soon. Assemblyman Stephen McLaughlin, a Republican from Rensselaer in upstate New York, said he is a strong supporter of police officers across the state and doesn't want to see reform legislation forced on the public.
But that doesn't mean that we can't sit down and talk and try to make some positive changes, but I think it begins with the discussion. So if the governor wants to have a discussion and debate and talk about things, I think he'll find some willing listeners.
As part of his agenda, Cuomo is also pushing for lawmakers to pass other equality measures. They include a boost to the minimum wage, training for young people, and the package of legislation centered on women. For WNYC, I'm Karen Rouse.
You're listening to Morning Edition on WNYC. Coming up, a week before the release of the film Selma, the Marketplace Morning Report looks at the economics of copyright law regarding the speeches of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Of that plus all the morning's business news in about 10 minutes. It's going to be mostly sunny today, getting up into the lower 40s. It'll be breezy at times, but not nearly as harsh as yesterday. Then tonight, mostly cloudy with lows around 30. Tomorrow, we might see some rain and snow in the afternoon. Little or no accumulation expected with a high around 40. And then the outlook for Sunday, rain and highs on Sunday in the upper 50s. Right now in New York City, it's 36 degrees. We have partly cloudy skies over New York City. 33 and mostly cloudy in Trenton. Coming up on 8:42.
WNYC support comes from Silver Hill Hospital, specializing in the treatment of chronic pain and recovery in adults. Silver Hill Hospital, restoring mental health since 1931. Information at 1-866-547-4455 or at silverhillhospital.org.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Louise Schiavone. And the Java C